Good afternoon, everyone. That was a little loud. Wow, sorry. So welcome to History Saver 1941, back to the YouTube channel. And hopefully everything is going good with you guys on, what's it, Wednesday afternoon here in South Alabama. So hopefully everything is going good, but welcome to the channel and welcome to this first installment something I've been promising for a long time. That is a podcast here on the channel. Welcome to the first installment of Coffee and History Podcast. And yay! So we are going to try this out. I'm hoping this works out good. There's always kinks, in the first run of anything you ever do. And yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have some guests on that's going to be coming on the podcast from time to time. It's going to be absolutely just a fantastic time here at History Saver. And if you guys are just popping in, I've got to do this one more time. I've got to play this thing one more time. This is our main new podcast open for this show. Now, you cannot tell me that that's not just freaking cool or what. That took me like 15 minutes to make too, so it wasn't too bad. Millsap Duo is in the chat here on YouTube. Good morning. Howdy, everyone. Good morning to you, buddy. And thanks for stopping in. Thanks for always supporting the channel. Thank you guys for always supporting the channel, each and every one of you. Now, this podcast is going to be on, of course, Apple, Spotify, wherever you stream your audio versions of this podcast. But I am also going to do the podcast just like this on live episodes here on YouTube, and then keep those on the channel as well, because if you guys are like anything like me, I like watching the live video versions as well. So we're going to kick it off. Dustin's in here. Good morning. Good morning, or good afternoon, rather. I guess it is afternoon. And yes, it is called Coffee and History, and I do have a cup of coffee. This is Tim Hortons coffee today is the choice. And it's on a stylish mug. My wife got me this, or my family got me this for my birthday. Project Past, what's up, buddy? You are kind of the subject of this show. I'm glad you stopped in. We're going to be doing something new with these shows a little bit too, going forward, especially on these video versions that I kind of want to incorporate in. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and I'm going to try it today. Hopefully it works well, but James from Project Past is in here. A good friend of mine, good friend of the channel. Yeah, with me, I'm have some really cool discussions outside of YouTube on some history stuff. And he has been in Chickamauga. And I was in Chickamauga earlier this past year. And this is a coffee and history. We got to take a swig of coffee. But he was in Chickamauga. I was in Chickamauga earlier this past year. I'm going to tell you guys, if you've never been to Chickamauga or explored the Battle of Chickamauga, it can get quite confusing, to say the least. The Battle of Chickamauga is an animal. And, we're going to be examining some of what James is doing here on this morning's or this afternoon, or whatever time it is, wherever you are, on this little episode. We're going to try to, because I want to try this out and see if it works. Anyway, so we're gonna do that today. So James, stick around, because maybe you could give us some insight into what's going on when we do this. But where have I been, guys? I've been silent the past week. I've had a lot of things going on. Some of you may or may not know, outside of YouTube, outside of doing this, I have taken on a new role as the executive administrator for Emerging Civil War. Practically my dream job, honestly. I get to work with some of the best historians in the world, with Chris Mikowski, and Dan Davis has been there, Sarah K. Beerley. There's so many historians with that organization that I have looked up to for a very long time, and now I'm finding myself working with them and alongside them. So it's pretty cool. It's a cool experience, but there's a lot going on in that end. And this channel is in no way going to be affiliated as of now with Emerging Civil War. This is completely separate, my own deal. But of course, I will push Emerging Civil War. I always have on my videos, even before when I was staff with Emerging Civil War. If you haven't checked out the Emerging Civil War book series, go do that. I promise you, you will not be sorry. If you're planning on going to any battlefield anywhere in the country that is a Civil War battlefield, you have to check out the Emerging Civil War series. See if there's a book on that particular battlefield and use that book kind of as your guide. Read it before you go. It will help you get familiar with the battle while at the same time kind of dumbing it down a little bit so you can understand it. I mean, it's just an absolutely fantastic book series by multiple authors and historians, and they know what they're talking about. That brings me to the next thing of what I've been doing. I have been starting to work on my first book myself on the Native American involvement during the American Civil War, particularly focusing on the Trail of Blood on Ice campaign in 1861. And is primarily dealing with the Muskogee Creeks. And this is going to be a piece of history that's lost. And this is going to start prior to the American Civil War. And it's going to be very cool. You're going to see a lot of stuff coming up on the channel. You've already seen a little taste of it when I went to Oklahoma to the sites. But you're going to be seeing more of that on the channel as we go along as well. And there's a lot more you're going to be seeing pop up on the channel too. We have coming up down the pipe for you guys. Next episode on History Saver is going to be Wilson's Creek. We've also got Manassas, we've got Chancellorsville, we've got Mount Vernon, we've got a really cool church, Episcopal Church in Alexandria, Virginia, where both Washington and Lee attended. So it's going to be a pretty cool experience to bring those videos to you guys. So that is what's coming down the pipe. Wilson's Creek is in the immediate future, however, and Wilson's Creek place was put on my radar by Dustin, who is in the chat right now, watching this live. And thank you so much, Dustin, for suggesting that I have to check out Wilson's Creek. It's just one of those battles you really don't think about a whole lot when you think about the American Civil War. Of course, it was no Gettysburg, it was no Shiloh, but it was just as, if not a little bit more important than those battles. This is going to occur in the very beginning of the war, when all of this thing, this big thing, this big picture is kicking off. And Wilson's Creek there's going to be so much happening there. Of course, we're Bleeding Kansas going on. And you've got, also just some phenomenal figures that are going to play such a pivotal role at Wilson's Creek. So that's going to be a cool battlefield to kind of take you along with me as we explore Wilson's Creek. So you'll be able to see that on the next episode of the History Saver. You'll also see Manassas, like I said. We go on Manassas. It's my first visit to Manassas, and it was absolutely fantastic. We also are going to do Chancellorsville, Fredericksburg, and Mount Vernon, and a very cool church in Virginia, Alexandria, Virginia, where both Lee and George Washington are going to attend at some points in their life. So there's a lot of pretty cool stuff coming up on the channel. And we also have a lot more down the piper we have not yet filmed. We are headed to Virginia again in August. Now, why I'm heading to Virginia is a reason why you need to hurry up and grab your tickets now if you do not have them, to the Emerging Civil War Symposium. And that's going to be at Stevens Ridge and right outside of Fredericksburg, Virginia. I got Alexandria on my mind. But yeah, you need to go grab your tickets now at emergingcivilwar.com. We still have a few available, I believe, but they are rather going quickly. But that is going to be pretty much the first week of August. It's going to be a Friday and Saturday, and possibly Sunday as well. And it is going to be absolutely fantastic. Some very cool speakers. There's some very cool discussion that's going to be happening, and at one of the coolest places, in my opinion, in the entire U.S., especially if you're into the Civil War, Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania, and Chancellorsville, area, wilderness area, all of that's right around there. So many battlefields in that little spot that you have to check out. But we have planned to film. We're going to leave a few extra days early for that trip. I am driving, not flying this time, and we are going to stop at, I know, Petersburg, and I have learned my lesson about planning things on road trips like this because I have places in my mind I want to stop, but it never seems to work out the way I quite schedule things out. So Petersburg, you will see Petersburg, you will see Fredericksburg, you will see Spotsylvania, but we're going to hit some other cool spots. I just don't want to tell you what it is yet because I don't want to make promises that I can't keep. Let's see, Millsap Duo, what's your thoughts on the finished restoration on Little Round Top? Yes, for all of you guys that's been asking when is Little Round Top and the restoration that the National Park Service has been doing is going to be finished, it is finished. It was actually reopened day before yesterday, I believe it was, on probably one of the hottest days in Gettysburg in quite a while. And it is now open. And I have not seen it for myself. I have not been there personally. I am planning to go hopefully soon because I really do want to see what work they've did. I know Patty O'Rourke, man. I just can't. I can't imagine that nose not being shiny. I really can't. I've seen pictures of it and it just looks weird. Yeah, if there's a legend, if you rub his nose, there's a little statue on top of Little Round Top of Patty. If you rub his nose, he brings you good luck. And where people have rubbed his nose over the years, it is like, was a brass color. But they went in and kind of restored the monuments, and now his nose is a normal statue color now, so which is kind of weird. But the rest of Little Round Top looks great from the pictures I've saw. It looks really amazing. They've done a bang up job there, and it looks like a night and day difference. And also, if you guys haven't checked it out, you can find some of this, I believe, on the American Battlefield Trust and maybe some other channels like the Gettysburg Foundation, things like that, where they have recovered several things during this restoration process on Little Round Top. I mean, of course, they found bullets, they found maybe some pieces of belt buckles and different artifacts, and that's always my favorite thing to see is what they find when they're restoring these things, and because that offers so much information about what they could tell us about that battle. So it's always nice to see those pieces of history being uncovered and then saved for others to enjoy. And yeah, so it is open. Little Round Top is open again. You can go there, and finally, and I was there, I think the week it closed. I was there the day before it closed, actually, 2 years ago. And then last year when I went, it was closed. I have not been this year. I've not been able to make my trip to Gettysburg this year so far, but hopefully later in 2024 that would pan out, if not in 2025. But yeah, we'll see Little Round Top one day. But Millsap Duo, I think is awesome. I think it's about time. About time it's open. So it's been closed for almost 2 years. So yeah, kudos to them for all the hard work they did. Now let's get to go see Little Round Top. And I don't know what's next down the piper for them. I'm sure there's going to be some more restoration projects. I just don't know exactly where yet. But we'll be keeping our ears and eyes out for that and figure out what's going on. Get us some of our Messerschmitt coffee this morning. So we have a lot coming up. There's a lot going on. I haven't been on social media as much as I usually am. If you follow my Instagram, I usually post all the time, but I'm usually sharing JD's channel or James's channel here and what those guys are doing. I like supporting the channels I love watching. Because I'm a big fan of these guys, just like the rest of you. I'm just a little small fish out there. But I enjoy doing it. But, you know, those guys are doing some bang-up, awesome jobs on their channels. And Project Pass he was recently in Chickamauga, and he is running those episodes now on his channel. He started this past week, and I've got to say, holy bananas, is good. That first episode I've watched, which you're actually going to see a little bit of this in a minute, because we're going to do a little reaction to it. I've been wanting to try some of these reaction videos to other, of my favorite history YouTubers and historical content out there as a way to promote them. So we're going to watch some of this together here in a minute of Chickamauga and James and Project Past, of James of Project Past and what he was doing there. But I've got to tell you, the amount of research that goes into going to these battlefields and filming these videos, I can tell you, it is not easy. It is not easy researching. It is not easy putting together a shooting schedule. It is not easy putting the plans of filming that day together. And then it's even harder going out there and actually filming it. Believe it or not, editing the videos is probably the easiest part, in my opinion, because there's a lot more work that goes into actually filming and the filming process, the pre-filming process. And I can tell you that Project Past does his homework. He does his research. This guy is unbelievable at what he is able to accomplish and the way he is able to deliver his content to the viewer is just absolutely astounding. JD is also, he's pretty good at what he does as well, and he does an unbelievable job there. So, I mean, it's cool to kind of take notes from these guys and get pointers from them, but it's even cooler to be able to share their journeys through watching their content. And that's what I really love about watching YouTube. I don't watch TV, guys. I watch YouTube. It's very rare I watch TV. I am going to see Twisters. I do want to go see that movie. Twister is one of my favorite movies growing up. Now Twisters is coming out later in July, and you best believe I'm going to be at the theater to see that. But let's do this. Let's get into, let's do a share screen here, and let's get into this video right here from James from Project Past. And this is his latest video. You're going to have to go visit his channel, Project Past, right here on YouTube. You see it right here. The Battle of Chickamauga, to fight for Alexander's Bridge. And let's see it.
It is often said that Chickamauga is Cherokee for River of Death. Now, while the true meaning of Chickamauga is up for debate, what is not up for debate is the bloodshed that took place here in September of 1863. After nearly 3 days of fighting, nearly 34,000 men were killed, wounded, and captured on these fields behind us here. And we're here to find out why the Battle of Chickamauga was so deadly.
Okay, so first off, what an introduction. What an introduction to Chickamauga. And I'm hoping you guys are seeing this okay. If you're in the chat this morning, please let me know if this is laggy or looking dumb. So just let me know if it's looking good with the shared videos here. But what an introduction to Chickamauga. I mean, Chickamauga was such a whirlwind. I know, James and I, Project Past, have had this discussion together off of YouTube about this particular battle and how it can just get so confusing and so complex because some of these troops covered the same ground, I mean, numerous times. When I say numerous times, I mean 4 or 5 times even. And there was such death and carnage at Chickamauga, which translates roughly to River of Death, that it was just unbelievable. At the time of the battle, I will say this, at the time of the Battle of Chickamauga, the underbrush there was pretty cleared in the woods. And that is because the livestock, for one, the livestock that would go through the underbrush in Chickamauga would kind of keep everything ate down or trampled down. And also, if you ever go in the woods and you see wood laying all over the ground, well, back then in these areas around Chickamauga, that wouldn't have been the case as much because people used wood to heat their homes and for other things such as building. We don't really do a whole lot of that today. So there's a lot more woods, a lot more down trees than there actually would have been back then. But up under the trees and in the wooded areas, the ground would have been clear. There wouldn't have been many thickets or briars or things like that because of the cattle, the hogs, the horses, people going in there. I mean, so it was a little bit of a different situation there. Let's keep watching here.
Now, before we cover the actions at Alexander's Bridge, we are first going to cover the actions at Reed's Bridge. On the morning of September 18th of 1863, Confederate General Braxton Bragg would march his army towards the banks of the Chickamauga Creek. His goal was to cross the creek, cut off and destroy a lone Union Army corps under the command of Thomas Crittenden, and then he would attempt to retake Chattanooga before the Union Army was able to consolidate. In order for this plan to work, Bragg would cross the Chickamauga Creek at 4 points: Thetford's Ford, Dalton's Ford, the Alexander Bridge, and right here at Reed's Bridge. Now, defending Reed's Bridge was Colonel Robert Minty and his 973 men. On a morning of September 18th, Minty would order 2 patrols beyond the bridge. One of these patrols, commanded by Captain Weber Thompson of the 7th Pennsylvania Cavalry, collided with Confederate infantry near Peavine Creek. Private Samuel Walters of the 7th Pennsylvania Cavalry would be credited with firing the first shots of the Battle of Chickamauga.
Okay, I'm going to stop again right here for just a second. Now, if you read up on the events leading into Chickamauga, they are really interesting. You've got the fight for Chattanooga, Tennessee going on, and you've got troops trying to move into position here. And these 4 bridges are going to play key. And when I went to Chickamauga, I found this really interesting, and how this event helped shape the rest of the battle there at Chickamauga. And James is doing such an awesome job portraying why this is important here. And I mean, I would just like to be a fly on the wall on that first morning there at Chickamauga in September of 1863. Let's keep watching.
The Confederate infantry would push over the creek, driving back the outnumbered Union cavalry. Minty's men would delay the Confederate infantry as long as they could. Sometime after 2 p.m., the Confederate infantry was finally able to reach Reed's Bridge. They began to push across under stiff resistance by Colonel Minty's men.
Now, as you see right here, he says the 23rd Tennessee was the first to cross Reed's Bridge. Pretty cool he added that fact in there, because this is something I did not actually realize myself, so I just learned something along with you guys.
Colonel Minty and his small force began to fall back. They had succeeded in their goal by delaying the Confederate force as long as they could. Now, while this fight was happening, Confederate infantry was now approaching Alexander's Bridge, which is where we're headed next.
And just so you guys know, this is probably my favorite place on the Chickamauga battlefield. As he has here,
so we've moved
10 a.m.
locations from Reed's Bridge, which is in this general direction, and we are at Alexander's Bridge. So on September 17th, Colonel John T. Wilder and his Lightning Brigade arrived in this area, and they were tasked with holding Alexander Bridge that you see before us here. Shortly after arriving in this area, Wilder would personally climb a tree on the Alexander property, and he would see dust clouds in the distance, which meant only one thing: the Confederates were advancing on this location here.
That is the advance of Bragg's army. Colonel John Wilder, commander of the Lightning Brigade.
Now, holding this general area here was the 17th Indiana, 5 companies of the 98th Illinois, 3 companies of the 72nd Indiana, and panning to my left here, you had 4 3-inch ordnance rifles under the command of Captain Eli Lilly and his 18th Indiana Battery. So they were back there quite a ways. Now, Wilder's brigade was a little different than the rest of the forces in the Union Army. They were what you called mounted infantry. Now, you're probably wondering, what's the difference between cavalry and mounted infantry? Well, Wilder's men rode into battle as if they were cavalrymen, but they fought as infantry. So they didn't have swords or sabers or lances. They would ride into battle, dismount, and fight as infantry. Now, they also had another advantage. They were sporting 7-shot Spencer rifles here at Chickamauga. Now, originally there was a little confusion about how Wilder would acquire these Spencer rifles. There were some rumors going around that he was personally writing bankers and investors in order to finance these rifles personally for his men. But in the end, the Spencer rifles that Wilder's men had here at Chickamauga were government issued. So after several inquiries, they finally got the Spencer rifle. And it would prove to be a great equalizer here, especially at Alexander's Bridge. So we are facing what is now...
Okay, so I'm going to stop it again here for a second. This is one of the coolest things when you're studying this location here at Alexander's Bridge is to study Wilder's men. I mean, their role in the early September morning, on that September morning of 1863, is going to be pivotal. And it's going to be pivotal for a number of different reasons. It's going to be pivotal because of the artillery they have with them. It's going to be pivotal because these guys fight like demons, man. Wilder's brigade put up a stiff resistance at Alexander's Bridge, but a lot of credit is going to go to that Spencer rifle. Now, that Spencer rifle is going to supersede, of course, the regular muskets that you have during the Civil War that can only get 3 shots in 1 minute. The Spencer rifle could put out, that many rounds in a couple of seconds here. So, yeah, you're not up against much of a fight in firepower if you're a Confederate soldier facing down to Wilder's men in a lightning brigade or, the lightning cavalry here, because they're going to be cutting you down with those Spencer rifles. So what they lack in manpower is gained by the firearm power. And that's something that a lot of people fail to look at sometimes when they reflect the number of men facing the other number of men, is what they were using for weaponry. A lot of times these Spencer rifles are become the great equalizer in things. And that is what is going to really, really come into key play right here. Now, I have been to Alexander's Bridge too. It's a great place. If you go to Chickamauga, people often overlook it. Don't overlook it. This is probably one of the most single important places in Chickamauga, and people just often pass right by it. Now, the bridge you see today here and the screen here of Project Pass's video is not the original bridge. You can find photos, however, of the original bridge. I don't remember where you find them, but if you Google them, I'm sure you can find them. But this is a rebuild of that bridge, of course. But such a cool location to go and see. Let's keep going here.
Now the Alexander Bridge. Now, during the time of the battle, this bridge would have been wood. As you can see here,
Right.
It's been redone, and now you see the steel there. But this is the exact location of where Wilder's men were holding Alexander Bridge. Now, it's also important to know that fighting was taking place at Reed's Bridge in this general area here. So while we're here at Chickamauga, keep in mind that as we're covering a specific event or a specific unit, that there are multiple things happening at the same time. So on the morning of September 18th of 1863, Wilder would send out a foraging party in this direction, and they would be foraging for food and supplies and things of that nature, where they would encounter Confederate pickets, and they would race back to this location, and Wilder knew it was only a matter of time before the Confederates were bearing down on this location. Now, around 12 p.m. on September 18th of 1863, with fighting raging near Reed's Bridge in this general area, about 350 yards to the east of Alexander Bridge here, a brigade of Confederates under the command of Brigadier General Edward Walthall and his Mississippi Brigade began to emerge and form lines of battle in anticipation of assaulting Reed's Bridge here. Now, Wilder's men did prepare some hasty fortifications here. They began tearing up the wood planks on Reed's Bridge here, and they constructed somewhat of a small redoubt in this general area here. And also, they caused damage to the bridge, so it would also slow the progress of anyone trying to cross it. But
So I'm going to stop again right here and just highlight what James just mentioned here. Is the fortification that Wilder's men are going to build. So I have read accounts from some of the men of Wilder's brigade there at Chickamauga, and some of them actually described this. They said they would grab whatever they could find, whether it be sticks or rocks or, like he's just mentioned, pieces of the bridge here. And they would take whatever they could just to build up some kind of fortification to protect themselves against these advancing Confederates. And then with that pairing with the Spencer rifle, Wilder's men were able to put up a stiff resistance here in this location. So a pretty cool thing that James is highlighting here for us and mentioning those fortifications that Wilder's men are going to put up. Let's keep going.
There was also something working in Wilder's favor here. Now, we mentioned the 7-shot Spencer rifles.
There you go.
But the banks of the Chickamauga are extremely steep, which would really hinder an army trying to cross. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So obviously you have Alexander's Bridge here, and looking down directly across from us, you can see the steepness of the banks here. And looking down this way, you can see just how steep the banks are on each side. Now you're probably wondering how a soldier in the 1860s couldn't cross that. It looks pretty passable, but keep in mind you have thousands of soldiers.
I'm going to pause this right here for a minute because I do want to show you guys something. You see this little area right here where my mouse is? This is going to be somewhere in the proximate area of where the original bridge is going to sit, but it isn't the same as that location. But I think this is a piece of the old original road. I'm not 100% sure on that, but when I was there and examining this and some of the photos I've seen, I think this is actually a piece of the original road right here. But I'm not 100% accurate on that, but I would be willing to almost put money on that is where it actually was. But yeah, you can see how steep the banks are here, and guys wrote about this, but it's something that I really didn't take into account until James mentioned it here, is the steepness of these banks and how much of a hassle it was going to be. I mean, everyone can't go over this bridge. You try to go over that bridge, you're a dead man. So yeah, of course, a lot of these guys will have to go in a creek to get across, and I'm sure a lot of them drowned here. So just something I really haven't taken into account.
There's wagons, artillery. Those pieces couldn't cross these steep banks, so they needed bridges and fords to be able to cross the Chickamauga here and execute Bragg's plan of pinning the Union Army against the mountains and destroying it. So we are currently in the position of the 17th Indiana Mounted Infantry here. And just to orient you, Alexander Bridge is right here. So again, we are on the west side of the Chickamauga Creek.
Such a
the
cool
Confederates
place.
began deploying around noon, their lines of battle. Edward Walhall's Mississippi Brigade began deploying about 350 yards to this location. So something to note about the terrain here. The banks of the creek were wooded, but a lot of this area behind the bridge here would have been cleared out and been farmland belonging to the Alexanders, which were down this way a little bit where Eli Lilly deployed his battery. So a lot of this was open fields, and really the only wooded areas were along the banks of the Chickamauga here.
So
Now,
I'm going to pause right here for a minute. The farmhouse, the Alexander's farmhouse that he was referring to, is indeed right back down that road. You could actually see the spot where the farmhouse once stood, but it was burned. But that place is going to play key as well. That is where Wilder is apparently, or the story goes, somewhere in that general vicinity is where he's going to climb the tree and he's going to look out over the bridge there and see the dust from advancing Confederates and say, "Yep, well, the show's on, man." It's basically, I guess what was going through his mind when he did that. But apparently somewhere in that area of the farmhouse itself is where he's going to climb that tree. And that would be probably a quarter of a mile, I would say, back in that general vicinity, back in towards the park itself. And you can find it on a map. It is marked. I'd really highly suggest picking up the Emergent Civil War books because they do make mention of that. And there's also an awesome video on the American Battlefield Trust that will also help you guide your way through the park if you do plan on going to Chickamauga. And it's one of the things I use for some of my research material as well. So yeah, I mean, those are great outlets. And then of course you could come back and watch Project Past in this video if you plan on going to kind of get you acclimated to the location.
Popped over to the area where the 72nd Indiana Infantry had some skirmishers and the general area of the 98th Illinois Mounted Infantry. So I just wanted to show you their perspective as well. And for orientation purposes, there's Alexander's Bridge. And we were just on the other side of the bridge here talking about the 17th Indiana. But let's imagine something here. You're a skirmisher in Wilder's brigade. Masses of Confederate columns are coming straight at us here.
Oh, wow,
you have
that's
Eli
cool.
Lilly's
That just scared me.
3-inch ordnance rifles hurling shells over your head. Think about the sounds that would have made. Think about the rebel yell coming straight at us, and just knowing that you're funneling that infantry into a choke point that is Alexander's Bridge Road. Now the Confederates would make a few attacks in this general direction, and they would come to realize that this position was too strong, and they would move their men down this general direction and cross at a ford. Now again, like we touched on earlier in the video, keep in mind there's still fighting happening at Reed's Bridge. So
Okay, so I'm going to stop it right here. So yeah, oh man, so much good information there, and you're going to have to go and watch the complete video. I didn't show all of it there. I showed a good bit of it, but I didn't show all of it. I don't really like showing it all if I can help it, because I want to leave you. I mean, if I show it, then what's this channel doing good? But anyway, a lot of cool information there. Now that I'm not peeing my pants after James scared me with some really good, very well-timed sound effects there. Very well-timed sound effects. Pretty cool too. Sit and think about that for a minute. I mean, you're a soldier. You are a Union soldier in Wilder's cavalry, and you're sitting there on a creek bank, and there are thousands of enemy troops coming towards you from the other side of the creek. And just to think about the sound, the screaming, the yelling, the musket blast, the cannon blast. I mean, it was not a quiet situation. And, something that a lot of these guys have never even experienced before. Some of these guys at Chickamauga have never been in the battle. Most of them have, but there were quite a few that hadn't either. So just put yourself in their shoes. 18-year-old kid, 17-year-old kid, and maybe even 16, 15 years old, in battle in the middle of Georgia in September. If you go there during the summer, I will say summer is not the most optimal time to visit Chickamauga. It is extremely hot, and there are snakes. There are a lot of snakes. So just be careful if you do go there in the summer months. But the prime time to go will be during the winter. You can see a lot more too without the vegetation on the trees. So the wintertime is my favorite time to explore battlefields, not just because of the weather and it being cooler, but also because a lot of the vegetation is gone, and you can really get a sense of the battlefield topography and terrain. So that is one of the I guess tips here from History Saver for you guys. If you're going out on the battlefield, wintertime is the best time to do it, and it's not just because of the weather. So James from Project Past, go visit his channel, Project Past, here on YouTube. Such a great channel. And that's just a little taste. That's not even that whole episode. There's a lot more on that episode. But there's nothing like watching his videos, getting the first-hand accounts. He really puts you in the shoes of one of the commanders or one of the soldiers that are actually fighting in these battles in these locations, and it makes you. And then he about makes me pee with sound effects here on myself. So yeah, that made me jump. Seriously, that made me really jump. So hopefully that went over, guys. Okay, hopefully this stream is not lagging too hard. So hopefully everything is good on this podcast. So episode 1 is always going to be fun to go back and look at of anything that you do and see how you come over the course of time. But it looks like I'm in the spaceship here. But yeah, so go check out James at Project Pass. Go check out all of the history content creators here on YouTube. Go support them all. We all enjoy the same thing. We enjoy history. So everyone just has their own way of presenting and doing things, and it's always fun to go watch. And we'll be doing more of these kind of reaction video type things in the future. If you guys like it, we'll may do some reenacting stuff or some World War II stuff, do some Civil War stuff, do a bunch of different things. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So we have a lot coming down the piper. Wilson's Creek going to be the next video here on the channel. We're going to try to get some guests also on here in the near future, so that is something to look forward to as well. But for me and for this episode of Coffee and His Podcast, thank you for joining me. And we're going to end this thing on a good note, because I think that's about the best note you can end on. And it's from Alexander's Bridge in Chickamauga, Georgia, with Project Pass. So what a cool experience, what a cool topic, what a cool episode. So we'll come back to you with another episode. I'm going to try to do one of these podcasts every week. So be on the lookout for another one. Next week we will come back and do one. Not a whole lot going on. Maybe I'll do 2 a week. Let's see. Most up duo. I was actually bidding on a musket with papers documented to the 98th Illinois last week. That is absolutely cool. Absolutely cool. That would have been a great pickup. Oh, guys, if you haven't done so, Millsap Duo, go visit him here on YouTube. He's got a great channel as well, especially if you like firearms like I do. Which reminds me, I've got some catching up to do in some of my favorite YouTube firearm channels. So, like Demo Wrench. Yes, I'm a Demo Wrench. What is it? Slow Mo Ballistics or something like that. I don't forget. But a big fan of their channel too. This dude had a RPG rocket blow up on him the other day. And we may actually have some fun here and do a reaction to that video next. I think that'll be fun. But yeah, maybe even do some reaction videos of some of those. I mean, it's a history channel, so hey, that's part of it. But yeah, guys, so we will see you on the next episode here of History Podcast. Be looking out for another episode. If not later this week, then we do at least one next week. And I hope this first episode actually kicked off okay. And yeah, it's been really fun, and I am looking forward to doing more of these. So make sure you stop back in, share our channel with your friends, go visit Emergent Civil War, Addressing Gettysburg, and History Fits, and of course, Project Past here on YouTube. Thank you, James, for having that, this great content out there for us to watch. I really love every time he posts a video. So, and it's just kind of cool to share a reaction of my, of what I think about the video we use. And you can't go wrong with any of his videos. Is my reaction, really. They're all so freaking and stinking good, man. Just go give him some love and support. Subscribe to his channel, and tell him I sent you, okay? So we'll get off here. Until next time, guys, keep preserving history. Stay safe. And check us out on the next edition of Coffee and History Podcast. Be on the lookout for Wilson's Creek for the next video upload here. So we'll see you then.